that's really how I came to own and recognize Woo as one of... Hi.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
That's okay.
I'm sure they are for you.
Justine Miller.
That's my husband, but that's me.
Justine.
I'm Hannah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sending some flowers.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
So somebody sent me some flowers. You better take
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
I can't wait to tell
Justine
Justin
Miller.
that his name is Justine.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit.
Back it up.
Cut that out.
Welcome to our second... Is there a second edition?
Well, yeah.
Technically, kind of the fourth.
I have no idea.
Our
We're not
second
keeping track.
edition of Jen and Millie. Today we thought what we would talk about is what we really encourage everyone to do after you first learn about strengths, which is to do your homework. Homework is a good thing. I'm a former educator, so I love that I can give homework to people all the time. And the homework we're going to talk about are really the resources that are already available to you. So after you take the Superfund survey, it doesn't just stop with a piece of paper or a list of these 5 amazing words that describe you. There are actually some reports and some resources that help you to go to that next step of claiming and aiming your strengths. So I'll have you talk a little bit, Tess, about the Strengths Quest.
Awesome. So when you took the Superfund survey, you created your own username and password. And your username is usually your email address, and then a password is something that you made up. And most passwords, they make it, you have to do a character and an uppercase, lowercase, that kind of stuff. So you would have created that on your own. And that is always yours, regardless of your involvement with teammates. You forever have access to that information. And so we encourage you first to log back in. The website, again, is www.strengthsquest.com. And when you log back in, you'll see your own unique information here. And so it will have your own top 5. My top 5 is here, available for me. And then on this main page, it has a listing of reports that you can use and you can access at any point in time. And so this homework that Allie is talking about is really the signature theme report. When you download and open up that report, which I don't know how it's going to work super well on here, but we have it printed out also. But the signature theme report is the first one we point people to, and it gives the longer definition of each of the strengths. And so it takes your top 5 in the order that they appear, and it gives you a longer definition of what those are. These are the same definitions for all people, the signature theme report, and they're the basic longer definitions of each theme in your top 5. And so in a moment, we'll do a little bit more with that, but I want to continue walking you through the website here for just a moment. Another report that I like to walk people through is the Strengths Insight report. And so this is very similar to this signature theme report that we just talked about, but the Strengths Insight report has more personalized information. You're going to get the brief description of each of the themes and then a longer paragraph, just like we saw with the other report, but the information in the longer paragraph is more personalized to you. So it's generated information based on your other top 5 strengths. How, for me, my context looks different because I have learner in my top 5 versus someone who has context and woo in their top 5. It might look a little different. So that person will have different information in the description of their theme versus the descriptions that I have in my own. And so that's a really great one, I would say, is really a second place. After you go through the signature theme report, really get to know the theme overall first, and then dial down more into how that theme looks within your own person, your own personality in that Strengths Insight report. The other piece that we love to show people is this apply section. And this is really where we point mentors and mentees that are, once again, Strengths Quest is mentees who are in 9th through 12th grade. And so we like to point them here because Strengths Quest is the platform of Gallup's strengths for the education sphere. And so as an education-based mentoring program, school-based mentoring program, this is really beneficial for everyone that's involved in our program. And so we like to point mentees to the the student action items here. And when you open up any of these action items, it really breaks down each of your themes in terms of different areas. So for students, so my number one theme is context. It talks about how you can affirm and develop a student's context, or as a student, how your context or theme can be further affirmed and developed. What careers might be really beneficial, might be really engaging for someone within this that has this theme strong. What classes should I choose based on my context? What extracurricular activities might I enjoy? And then what general life and academic information I might need to know. And then how it impacts my relationship. Finally, study techniques. Those are some things just for the student action items. And like I mentioned, as you saw on the previous page, there are also teacher action items. So if you are a teacher or an education professional, those are very beneficial. And then all of us are professionals in some way. And so the professional action items talk more about the workplace and how those themes impact your workplace environment. So it's a place we really like to point people to, especially for your mentoring relationship. So take time with your mentee and you can go through those student action items and say, what would be some classes that you might really enjoy? What would be some majors that you might want to explore if you're going on to post-secondary education? So that's a great resource there. And then I always like to tell people you have access to the book, the full Strengths Finder 2.0 book, Strengths Quest full version of the book, excuse me. You can download it by chapter. You can download the full book. This is available to you at any point in time, again, through the online system. Anything else you want to add to online resources?
I just think sometimes after we take the Superfund survey, we forget that this is available to us. As Tess mentioned, your email address is your username. It's your username always, even if that email address goes inactive. So log back in here and take a look at some of these reports so that it can really help you dive a little deeper into what your strengths mean. Tess printed out the copy of the signature theme report, and one of the homework items we like to give during training or after training is for mentors to print this out and then highlight words and phrases that sound like you. When I take a look at input and I look at this longer definition, highlighting words and phrases that sound like me is really kind of that next step in ownership of understanding what input might look like. The great thing about strengths is we can often see them in ourselves through the mirror, but the great way to learn a little bit more about your strengths is to see how other people might see your strengths in you, or how you might utilize your strengths at work or in relationships. So I encourage people to hand this report over after they've highlighted the words and phrases that sound like them. Hand them over to someone who knows you well and have them take a look at the words and phrases. They may highlight words or phrases that might be different than the ones that you saw were your strength in action.
We now have just done the first part of what we ask people to do for this homework assignment. And so printed it off, and then we went through ourselves with our own reports and took a look at just one theme. We would love you to do all of the themes to take a look at, but we just did it for the purposes of today. One theme that we each took of our own, went through and highlighted words and phrases that resonated with us as an individual. And now the second part of the homework assignment is to hand it over to someone who knows you well and have them do the same thing about you. And so I'm going to hand mine over to Allie. We work together and have known each other for a while, so she knows me pretty well, and I'm going to do the same for her.
That is true. And I'm going to use a pen.
Yep.
I
would have. That is exactly what I was thinking.
Fantastic. Wow, look at that. On the same page. Not only did I highlight what I saw, but I also wrote where I saw it. So
cool.
I think
Me too.
that is, so this is a way for us to take this report, and again, it's not just a piece of paper, but really an opportunity to strength spot, even in a definition that's written. When I think about working with Tess, the first sentence on context is you look back, and I think about Tess's strong connection to her faith. A time of blueprints, her biblical knowledge, realizing what initial intentions were. I put a heart around that. I really love putting hearts around things.
Yeah, I noticed.
Where she highlighted, you become a better partner because you understand how your colleagues came to be who they are. She put yes, and I said yes. exclamation point, because it also honors her individualization and how that theme pairs together. If you haven't seen the blueprints, you'll have less confidence in your decisions. Our database is really, if you have to look back, you have to see the blueprints and the structure of our database in order to share that information with other people. And that is how you teach that to others.
Awesome.
So I see your context in you.
Oh man, so you don't talk about your strategic a lot. She selected strategic, and so I was a little worried when I was looking at her paper and saw that that's the one she chose. So, but I think really the idea. Right away, I strength spotted your context when you said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to use the pen side to underline," and that was my strategic too. That was like, yeah, that would make sense. Then we can see what was, the other person's, what was our original information. And so right there, I put the fact that you were underlining with pen. That is an example of the best route, so that in the future, when we talk about this, we know what our marks on it were, and we know what our partner's marks on it were. I really saw this idea that your perspective allows you to see patterns where others see complexity. And you talk a lot about, I love that they use the word pattern, because you describe your strategic in terms of pathways. And I think that's something that you noticed a lot. I mean, even physically speaking about pathways, when you're traveling to a community, there are lots of different ways to get there, but you always take the back roads. And there are reasons for that, and that's blending with your other strengths. That's blending with your empathy. That's blending with your communication, your connectedness, that wants to be able to see a different side of Nebraska, of Iowa, of wherever you're traveling to. The question, what if, I think you use the phrase, what am I missing? Or what else a lot, but I think it's your catchphrase, but I think underlying is the question of what if. So you're asking the question outright as what else, what am I missing? But really it's what if. What if I don't have everything? What if I don't have all the information? What more do I need? And so that's really a strategic thing. And then I liked this idea of discarding all the paths, and the word discard over and over and over again. And but then the end was your strategy. Your strategic theme at work is what if, select, strike. And I was thinking, even with working with specific communities and doing strengths implementation, and I love that you contrasted my context with individualization, because I contrasted your strategic with individualization and that blend, because you don't say this is how we do strengths and we're bringing it to a community and this is the structure and the way you need to implement it, but you take a look to understand and get to know the community itself and what would be best for that individual community. I mean, you're working with 30, 40, 50 strengths communities we're working with, and each approach is individualized. But each approach is what if, select, strike. What needs to happen for that community.
Well done.
That's what I saw.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
So we often talk about, Don Clifton shared that we don't really start to learn until we hear our own voice. Our founder, Coach Osborne, I've heard him say many, many times over, the greatest human need is being heard. When we're doing this, it allows one another to feel heard and even better understood. When someone is talking about how you use this in such a positive way, I mean, does that not make your day feel a little bit better in your my little hearts?
Your hearts.
So that's what we designed this to do. So when we give you that homework, that's what we mean. So take this up with someone who knows you well, someone you live with, someone you work with, someone you like, maybe even someone you don't like so much, and have a conversation about, I want to strength spot and recognize where this is the best of you. This is how I see it. And they may see it a little bit differently than you do in the mirror. So Tess, and I love that you use the iPad. I did that actually deliberately so that it would honor the milliness.
Millennial in me.
Of this, where I have my very important to me laptop and much older phone. The other highlight we want to, the other resource we want to highlight is the Strengths app, which you can download.
Pretty great.
Really fun way for you, if you can't remember that you lead with input, communication, strategic, woo, and empathy, and it just doesn't come to you like that yet. This is a great way for you to have it on your phone. That'd be a great way to have an elevator conversation about your top 5 by simply or you could send this as a screenshot too.
Yeah.
Post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook. The other theme, the other resources we wanted to draw your attention to are those designed for students 3rd through 8th grade. So what Tess and I just talked about, that's designed for mentors and for students that are in high school taking the Strengths Quest survey. If your mentee took Strengths Explorer, shorter version of the Super Fun survey, they identify their top 3 of 10. You can go back to those resources with your mentee. The code that they used, it's a specific number code. They'll be able to go back in and access all of these resources. The youth workbook and parent guide are a great opportunity for you to have further conversations. Now, they are not designed specifically for the top 3 or top 5 like Strengths Quest is, but they give a more general, more broad information. The longer definitions of each of those strengths are there as well. Great opportunity for you to further that discussion if you're meeting with your mentee in the computer lab, or if you happen to have an iPad available to you, you can log back in and take a look at that information. And then the last resource I wanted to be sure to draw your attention to, I think it's great that I'm struggling with this, is the Strengths blog. If you are not reading the Strengths blog yet, we try to honor a strength each week, and Tess does a phenomenal job talking about each of these strengths the way that Gallup would describe them, but also in the way that they really present themselves to the world. Last week we had a guest post by Steph here in our office. In the future, I think we probably will rely on the great learning of others to talk about their strengths in action and be brave in sharing about how those strengths really feel for them. One of the things that we've learned about strengths is that the learning continues, and it's sometimes in the way that other people describe and talk about their strength in action that we can truly be more insightful as to what that strength means. Even bigger than this definition, maybe even bigger than a blend. It's the real life experiences and the ways that you use and honor strengths in yourself and in other people that really can help us to continue that learning. That's exactly what we do here on the Strengths blog. So if you go to strengthsmentoring.blogspot.com, that's a great way for you to learn a little bit more about a specific strength. We also have lots of information here from the past in ways that chapters have shared about strengths, so check that out. Hannah does a wonderful job on Wednesdays. We honor Strengths Wednesday, sharing about a particular strength. If that's in your top 5, like it, comment, share, tell other people about that strength, but also check out, if it's in your top 5, check out the blog and see if that describes you. And if you would like to be a guest blogger, we would love to have your contributions.
Yes. Thank you. So that's just a really first dive, tipping your toes into the water of the resources that are available.
I love that.
Oh, okay.
Tipping your toes. I feel like it would be even better if we had a little
pool
wading
down
pool,
there.
and
Yeah.
I do have pedicured toes, so I could just
Oh,
do
okay.
that. That'd be great.
I have my shoes off, so. But really, just this idea that there's a wealth and just like a plethora of information about strengths and strengths resources. We have full, like each of us have like drawers and drawers, and our office is full of strengths resources, and these are just the ones that are readily available at the tips of your fingers, literally by just going to a website, printing something off. But this is really just a start. This is a great place to start, and in your chapter, in your community, in your mentoring relationship, once you get past these things and you feel like I want to know more, feel free to reach out to us. We both have, the purpose of this is to share our different perspectives. We both have different resources and information and places that we can point you to even further expand your strengths learning journey, because just like Don Clifton said, you can do a whole lifetime of learning around your number one strength, and we get access to our top 5 or our top 3, and so it's so beautiful to be able to say, okay, what more can I learn? How else can I see this? What more can I do with this strength?
If you're a coordinator, you have received the Dropbox link, where we also have a lot of strengths activities, a lot of PDFs. One in particular that I really like is a student discovery series, and it's just about a 10-page workbook. That's available there for high school students to further explore with their mentor. We've got additional resources between the two of us, so if there's something that you're looking for, reach out and we can add some new ideas for match activities and ways to extend those strengths conversations.
Great. Thanks, everybody.